Antonio Stradivari, Life and Work. Welcome to the Stradivari Code, your podcast about the fascinating world of string instruments. Make yourself comfortable and join me in exploring the life of the unique violin maker, Antonio Stradivari. Imagine strolling through the narrow streets of Cremona. Small houses stand close together. Children play in the streets. Merchants advertise their goods. And somewhere behind an unassuming door, you hear the rhythmic rasping of a plane. Wood shavings fall to the ground. The scent of resin and fresh maple fills the air. Here works a man whose name sounds like magic centuries later, Antonio Stradivari. We know very little about his childhood. He was probably born in 1644, perhaps a few years earlier. The sources remain silent, and maybe it is this very mystery that surrounds him. The only certainty is that he grew up in a city known at the time as the heart of violin making. Cremona was already influenced by the Amati family, foremost Niccolo Amati, who is regarded as a teacher and role model for an entire generation of violin makers. Whether Stradivari actually apprenticed with him is not definitively proven, but all indications suggest so. His early instruments certainly bear traces of the Amati school, elegant, refined, almost fragile. But Stradivari was not a man who stuck to tradition. Soon he changed the shapes, enlarged the outlines, sought more volume, a sound that was not only delicate and sweet but also powerful and penetrating. Step by step, he developed his own handwriting and made an immortal name for himself in Cremona. Stradivari married twice. With his first wife, Francesca Ferraboschi, he had numerous children. After her death, he remarried, this time to Antonia Zambelli. His workshop was thus not only a place of art, but also a lively family home. His children grew up among workbenches and soundwood, and two of his sons, Francesco and Omobono, later worked alongside him until old age. It is fascinating to see how Stradivari's workshop and his family are intertwined. One must imagine life there as a bustling activity, the master with his two eldest sons cutting wood, possibly some helpers sharpening tools, customers from all over Europe coming and going, musicians who had heard of the quality of Stradivari's instruments and were now trying out their own. Stradivari was not the solitary artist working in secrecy, but a master running a thriving workshop, with clear organization, high standards, and tireless energy. His great period of flourishing, the so-called golden period today, began in 1700 and lasted about 2 decades. During these years, the most famous violins in the world were created: the Messiah of 1716, the Lady Blunt of 1721, and many others that are still revered by musicians and their audiences today. These instruments, although all modernized now, are a marvel of balance. They combine warmth and power, brilliance and depth. Soloists from different generations say they feel as if these violins sing on their own, that they are more than instruments, almost like living voices. But Stradivari did not only build violins, he also produced violas, cellos, lutes and some guitars. In total, there were probably over 1,100 instruments, of which about 650 still exist today. The fact that so many have survived speaks to the quality of his craftsmanship and to the care with which he attended to each individual piece. The owners of these instruments were always well aware that they possessed something valuable and therefore took special care of their treasures. Stradivari lived in an extremely turbulent time. Northern Italy was characterized by constant power struggles, wars, and severe epidemics, such as the plague that ravaged the cities. And yet he remained steadfast in his work. Perhaps it was this very consistency that shaped his life. While the world around him was constantly changing, he steadily continued to work on his instruments. Piece by piece, instrument by instrument, over decades. The continuity of his creative quality is incredible and fascinating. Violin makers of subsequent generations have always celebrated him as a role model and still do today. He himself experienced an unusually long life. In 1737 he died in Cremona, presumably over 90 years old, a high age for that time. He was buried in the church of San Domenico. His workshop was passed on to his sons Francesco and Omobono. However, even though they were skilled, trained violin makers, they never reached the stature of their father. As soon as the father's discerning eye faded, the quality of his son's work declined. It was as if an era came to an end with him. Today, almost 300 years after his death, his instruments still remain at the heart of the music world. They are not only highly sought-after cultural objects, witnesses to the most successful violin-making era in Cremona, unique sculptures of European craftsmanship, but above all, living partners of outstanding musicians. From the great concert halls of the world to the most renowned recording studios, when a Stradivarius is played, one hears something that is hard to put into words. It is as if a part of his soul continues to live on in these violins. And perhaps that is exactly Stradivari's greatest legacy. He created voices from wood that have endured for centuries, voices that tell stories, evoke emotions, and transcend boundaries. Antonio Stradivari was not a magician, yet there is something magical about his work. He was a man of flesh and blood, with family, worries, and duties. But he was also a visionary who heard the sound of eternity in every piece of wood he worked with. Today, when we walk through Cremona, pass by his first house still standing, or look at the tools and the many instruments by Antonio displayed in the Museo del Violino, we feel the breath of his magnificent aura. And when a Stradivarius is heard in a concert, we know that it is not just an instrument. Here, a life is sounding, the life of Antonio Stradivari, the man who made wood sing. That's all for today. Thank you for tuning in to the Stradivari Code again. Subscribe to our podcast, share it with others, and continue to join us on this acoustic journey into the fascinating world of string instruments. Stay interested. See you later.